pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's pray. Most kind and gracious Heavenly Father, we cannot thank you enough for who you are, for what you have done for us in our personal lives, for the hope that comes through your Son. We thank you so much for this board, for this school district, for this community, for all those who make it great. Pray that you be with us, help us in the decisions that we make, give us wisdom and discernment. Help us, God, to always glorify you in everything that we do. It's in your Son's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
Everyone, welcome to tonight's board meeting. We're good? Okay. The first thing we want to do before we start is to recognize one of our student activity groups.
Yes, Ms. Loudermilk, we are glad to have a DI group representative of the folks who went to Kansas City this year. Ms. Cheek's here to introduce them, so Ms. Cheek.
Yes, we are so thankful to be here tonight to give you some good news. We wanted to give you a report and feedback after you were so encouraging to us in May, and I wanted to let you know our 2 high school teams. We had the team in engineering placed 15th in the world. Our scientific team won 5th in the world, Metallic Chickens, and then they also won 14th in improv. And I'm going to let our East and West Junior High team that did service learning give you their report.
So we are Science Alliance. We're so grateful that you guys were able to send us to Kansas City. We placed 3rd in the world, as well as earning the Torchbearer Award, which was only given out to 1 team.
And we actually have a gift for Mr. Light, and the kids at Rwanda Christian School actually made this as like a symbol for friendship and collaboration, and they made it in Wylie colors.
Oh, that's really nice.
And they also made these wonderful shirts that we wore today.
That's cool.
Candy bowl.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you, guys. Appreciate that. We're proud of y'all. Congratulations. Thank you. Go ahead.
I just wanted to say that the team traveled to Rwanda. We had some team members representing, and we had Tanya McEllier that teaches 1st grade went along, and we worked with we took over $12,000 worth of educational materials, and we worked really hard with grades 3 through 6, and really enjoyed our time there. And we definitely have a sister school to collaborate with. So thank you again for your support and for our kids seeing make a difference locally, make a difference in the state, and make a difference in the world. So thank y'all so much.
Appreciate you. I also want to thank Robert Cheek. He's put up with Mrs. Cheek for a long time. Right, Robert?
No, sir. It has been.
Good answer. Good answer. Thank y'all. Appreciate y'all coming. We'll see y'all again next year. Okay.
You're welcome to stay.
Yeah, you can. Right. That's nice. I don't know what they make that out of, but that's pretty impressive. That's cool.
Yeah. Okay, we have reached the time for the public to share their comments with the board. Remember, you're limited to 5 minutes. And it is just a moment for you to share your comments, and we will not answer any questions or be able to respond. So we have Jed Hill.
I promise I won't take 5 minutes, really just about 30 seconds. Just want to say thanks to the administration, the campus administration, for Meet the Teacher. It's great to know in July when our Meet the Teacher is gonna be. I think you all know last year was a little bit frustrating for me and some other parents that had to make some things happen. I was on an airplane coming back to Meet the Teacher, but it's great to know in the first part of July when our Meet the Teacher is, and I've had a couple of parents reach out to me that knew I was frustrated last year and say thanks. So thanks on behalf of our parents for letting us know when our Meet the Teacher is going to be so we can plan for that Monday in August. Thank you.
Our first agenda item is to consider a board trustee vacancy. And so we will actually be going into executive session.
Yep, and it won't take very long, I don't think, so we will break into
6:37.
6:37. We'll be back in session pretty quick. is the first time we've come back in from executive session that there's somebody here.
We can leave?
No, you can't.
Now you have to stay for the next one.
We're back in at 6:47. Mr. McCurley has tendered his resignation as a school board trustee. Would you like to?
Yeah, so let me just make a comment. We have had an opportunity to hire Mr. McCurley's son, Zane. Zane's actually here tonight. He's gonna be doing some coaching for us at the 8th grade level. We're excited what he brings to the table there, but for us to be able to hire him, Chris can no longer be on the board. So, we will miss Mr. McCurley tremendously. And, I don't know, Chris, if you wanted to say anything to that group over here, or.
Well, I want to say something to my son first. I'm so proud of you. And you make me so proud. And I love you, and I'm so glad that you're home. And I'm looking so forward to watching you coach, kind of following your dad's footsteps. And maybe you'll kind of do it for a while and be a preacher. But I'm very thankful for all of you. Thank you for your friendship. Thank you for your support. I love these guys. I'm going to miss it, but I'm just so thankful for the opportunity for Zane. So, thank you all.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. I want to echo that. I just think, I'm working with these guys, we realize the support we have from you in particular, but the board as a whole. And I just, I know that we'll miss you, but there will be some other good folks to fill your shoes, and we'll just, we'll continue on the tradition that you have set ahead of us. So I think we're ready for the next step.
I will need a motion to accept his resignation.
I make a motion to accept Chris McCurley's resignation. I'll second.
Okay. And all in favor?
Aye.
Like it's unanimous? You're unanimous? Well.
Oh, they hesitated a little bit.
Miss Loudon, before he goes, I do want to say, again, we appreciate his years of service, and his wife has given up a lot of time with him to help us. So we're gonna ask him to take her to supper at some point and show our appreciation to you again. Appreciate it. Hey,
I'm out. See y'all.
you can stay, but if you stay, you gotta sit out there. Oh. Miller.
He's the main plate.
He can't do it. Oh. Don't forget who I am this morning. All right.
Front row's open for you.
Well, I think Zane's ready to go home.
Is that all of it?
That's it.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
See y'all. See y'all later.
See you.
The real
you.
important thing is Libby wasn't available to fix supper tonight. Chris had to feed Zane supper. See you guys.
See ya.
So the next agenda item is filling the board vacancy.
Yes, ma'am. And so, we've had a few board resignations over the years, and what we have, and this is many years in the making, what we have landed on that there's two things that we need to consider in filling, just for the year, that term. Number one, it makes good sense to appoint someone who has no interest in running. So there's not a perception or anything like that of hand selecting the board members. Then the other thing is, if we have the option, if there's a former board member that would do that, then there is no getting up to speed that person has to do. They kind of know the flow of how the board works, and then they can just hit the ground running. So we looked at we actually looked at from the most recent person back, And the most recent person who's gone off the board was Stephen Lowry. And so I called Stephen and, let him know what our thoughts were on that. And he did take a little while to think that through, but he did say he would serve, and he would accept that appointment if y'all decided to do that. So I feel like Stephen Lowry would make it. He was an excellent board member, and he'll be an excellent fill-in for this year.
Any questions?
So I move, we appoint Dr. Stephen Lowry as a replacement for Kristen Carter's place. For 1 year term.
For just
Yes.
1 year.
1 year.
Yeah.
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, unanimous? Good, okay, very good. Moving right on. Hey, she's straight to business, that's good.
Okay, next we will approve the previous minutes. They've been posted. I assume y'all all read them. Do y'all have any changes or any questions? Okay, so we'll approve those as presented. And we're moving on to the consent agenda.
Okay, Carol, you got the bills for the month?
I do have bills for the month. They kind of changed their tone a little bit in the summertime. Page 10 is where those begin. The largest item there is the June payroll, 2.8 million, for our payroll in June. And we did go ahead and list the visa charges for the month, which has to do with travel, basically. On page 12, there's a Westigo Fuels. That's one fuel bill as of 6/30. So you remember how we were doing bills every week for fuel? Well, this is the only one for June. So there you go. Towards the bottom, Synergy Technology, those are interactive boards. And I think we're replacing 37 of them with the 86,000.
And let me just say, the question came up at the last board meeting, if there was a replacement cycle for those boards. And basically, the reason for this large group is because some of these interactive monitors are not compatible with anything Windows 10 or greater or newer. And so it's an attrition model that we use. If they're functioning, if they're meeting the needs of that teacher, then they're gonna stay in place. Of course, when they no longer work with the software, then we have to replace it. So that's where we are with that.
Data Wells Communication, $10,000. Those are portable radios. Those are for our safety staff, is that right?
Is that two?
Two. Daktronics does our maintenance on our scoreboards, that $14,000, that's an annual fee. And on page 13, Shy Government Solution, that's Chromebook cards and some desktops as well, that $18,541. Page 14's got Universal Publishing, that's some textbook materials, $13,000. Woodwind, Brasswind, that's several pieces of band equipment, sousaphone, saxophone, oboe, clarinet. There were like 8 pieces that were purchased there. Supplemental bills are on page 15. Large one there, called Portland Landscaping, that's still for the East Intermediate Campus landscaping.
What was left?
There's still, there's over $50,000 left. So he just never gave us any draws.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the big first draw was for the hydro seeding, and then the second draw, and this draw is basically for labor. He hadn't given me a bill for the, PVC yet, which I think is a pretty big bill. But the total is gonna be, I think we had, it was 177, I believe, was the total, bid that he gave us.
And the electric bill, 56,000, Taylor Electric. And then the train company, 11,000, that was for some HVAC repairs.
Speaking of electric, are all the lights done?
They have installed most of them. They have a punch list they're working through. So I don't, I think they're through. Is there any lighting guys on anybody's campus now, on the west side? I think they have gone through and done them all. There are some definite punch list items that they're working on. And we did come across, even in our office, of course, our building was built in 1945, and since then, the number of electrical computers and
Outlets.
all kinds of things that we put on that they're gonna have to pull another circuit. To our office in particular, Desiree kind of starts doing this at the end of the day because what's interesting is that I learned something on fluorescent lights. You know, when they start going bad, they'll start to flicker. Well, these lights, if they don't have enough power if there's an issue with the power supply to them, they will flicker because they're automatic on and off. And so if there's a short amount of juice to it, it'll shut off and turn back on, like really fast. But it gives the same sensation as a fluorescent light that's flickering. Anyway, so we're gonna, to my knowledge, ours is the only one that we gotta add a circuit to right now, but ours is the oldest building, so that, but as we walk around, the outside lights are noticeable if you'll drive around. I think, again, they've got some punch items to work through, but you know, if y'all remember the night he presented, he was thinking maybe by the time school started.
Yeah.
That's what I was. And so what they were able to do is they got a larger crew out here. He didn't know that they were gonna be able to do that. They got about 12 guys out there. The first night at the high school, I think he said it's what he said, over 700. Were those fixtures?
Fixtures.
700 fixtures that they hit that night.
Cleaning up wasn't their specialty, but.
Yeah, they might not have been as good as cleaners as they were.
They can install though.
So since we're talking about lights, any update on the timers and stuff?
Yeah, the remote control and all that, yeah. No, they have not touched base since then. So we still have a retainage on those. Yeah, so they should be, I just don't understand why, but they just said they didn't have the parts in, so.
They do work though, right? I mean, they're all.
Oh, yeah, I mean, we've run them all, have we?
Yep.
I think we have run them all. Cool. I know we did softball and baseball, and I
Yeah.
don't remember the tennis lights. But I know they've checked them all out, so.
because I'm looking at the HVAC and that thing, when do you start running up? Or up and get everything up and running in the schools, like what is?
So we try to do that a little bit in advance of the teacher showing up. So for example, right now, I was at Ricky's campus earlier today. They just cool the office area. And that's pretty much what they do at every campus right now is do that. And then as we get closer to August 1st, we'll start the process of bringing them online. And nearly every year, we're gonna have some things that
We
don't
ran over
work.
at summer school, so they've been running like summer school, and then if we have
Those are
training
really-
there, we'll run it for whatever, the cafeteria, wherever they're training.
Yeah, that's true. We do have some of that, but a lot of the things that are happening in the summer in rooftop unit classrooms, so we don't have to turn on.
I think volleyball camp, we're running them.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I will
The
say.
gyms have had some
We
stuff.
did our
going on.
art camp at the same time as 1 week of summer school, so that kind of combined that a little bit.
There is a little bit of that. We try not to run chillers if we can, but like right now, this year, well, not just this year, but since we started having the athletic specific morning workouts, the indoor areas at the high school, those gyms are on the chiller. So we are running those some right now, but, now that's not, yeah, that's not good from an energy standpoint, but you just gotta do it. That's the way it is. Any other on the bills? Okay.
Saw my name on here. for
Oh,
that.
yeah, so, thank you. Desiree actually said, Joey, be sure and tell Cameron can't vote on
I
these.
got you.
Because he's being reimbursed for some of his expenses at the summer conference. Okay, thank you.
Good catch.
Just remind us when we vote. Okay, cash balance, Carol?
It's on page 16. We did have a little bit of bump of tax revenue in June, but, you know, generally we're on the downslide here. The state funding, they've got where they're gonna send us 10%. We got 10% of our funding in June, and we'll get 13 and 15 in July and August for the state funding portion of it, so there's just very little coming in these months. The total balance in all the bank accounts, $11,118,000. Page 17 has got our expense report. Where our actual expenses are for the year.
And again, just as a reminder, it's nothing that we hadn't been watching throughout the year, but our expenses are ahead of schedule, but a large portion of that is because of our facilities and construction expense, and then our food service expense. One that's kind of reared its head a little bit is the curriculum instruction, and we've just spent more in that area than we have in the past. And then also the, where else am I? The plant maintenance was a little bit higher this year, so. We will make budget amendments, at the end of August, and those will be the areas that are over 100%.
We'll do a bond payment August 15th, so the bottom line for debt service, we'll make that final payment in August. Revenue, page 18. Can show you where we're at with our taxes. I did see there was a large deposit that was made the 30th of June, which won't post until next month, but that was several $100,000 that came in just on the last day.
Well, and just kind of, so the big picture, if you looked at our expenses up to the end of the month, we're at 41.9, and our revenues were 41.8, and so that's also considering all those construction expenses. So I mean, really, all in all, we're cash flow, we're in a good situation right now, so. I think that, is that it?
Is that
Any other questions?
Make a motion to pay the bills.
Second.
All in favor?
He's abstaining. So it's a 2-0 vote.
2 votes.
3 Miller's okay. Okay.
All right. We're moving on to setting lunch prices for the 2022-23 school year.
Yes, ma'am. Just, as y'all know, food prices have gone up substantially. In reality, this year was a good year for our food service department. A lot of that was because of the reimbursements that we were allowed to get for all students who ate. reimbursement rate's actually better than what we can charge, so it was a big bonus to our food service fund balance this year. However, our, food service, the intent of food service is to be a balanced program as far as finances are concerned. They should bring in about what they expend. So with that said, considering the increased costs, we would recommend a quarter increase on the prices of meals. Will go up a quarter on breakfast. All breakfasts are $2.75. That's a smaller participation for breakfast, not near as much participation in that. And then our lunch prices are gonna, for PK through 5, we're gonna go to 3 1/4, and 6 through 12 to 3.75. Each of those is an increase of 25 cents. Let me say that we're doing it by grade level this year, and the reason we're being specific about that is because with the East Intermediate, he's gonna have 4th and 5th, where 5th grade has been with the junior high in the past. So 5th grade is gonna be in on that price for the younger grades. And then 6th grade and up is gonna be on the price for the upper grades. And
So he deciphers it.
yeah, he's the only one that has to do it, but we do feel like the 5th grade parents at that campus should be happy because I'm not having to pay as much as 7th graders, so we're working through that process.
Just with moving away from that program, and I don't know if we've talked about this, are you able to bring back more on the snack bar, or we leave it the way it is?
So
Is that
we are going on the across the board. We are going to go with the program because we were in the situation where we were losing money. We at one time, the way we were doing it, we could when you aren't in the school lunch program, you have to generate enough from your a la cartes to cover the cost of the free or reduced meals. And we were just not able to get there. And so we will have to follow the same guidelines we did this past year. With that said, we know some of the issues with our a la cartes. It just weren't the same as they were the previous year. I do know that they are working to make the best selections for the foods. They're still gonna have a line, but they're not gonna be able to have some of the items that they've had in the past. Some of the crowd favorites, are not gonna be there, so. But we just can't afford not to have them be back on the school lunch program. So, that's a good question.
Any other questions?
I move we approve the breakfast and lunch prices listed above for the 2022-23 school year.
All in favor?
Aye.
Moving on.
Thank you very much.
Next item is considering the teacher appraisal system and policies and calendar for the 2022-23 school year.
Yes, ma'am. What you see is what we've done ever since we've adopted the new program, which is T-Test. That's the state teacher appraisal system. The calendar dates match our calendar. We can't start evaluating teachers too early in the year. They've got to finish before the end of the semester. There's some areas they stay away from. Then you have all the appraisers listed. With that, from the central office, you've got Mr. Hagler and Mr. Vaughn. They're basically second appraisers. Did I miss anybody there? We do use T-Test for contract renewal decisions also. And so, y'all look at your list, make sure we didn't miss anybody on your campus that's gonna be doing appraising. Are we good? We thought we were, but never bad to ask. So this is standard operating procedure. Each year we do this.
Okay, any questions?
T-test appraisal system as listed.
Policies and calendar.
Policies and calendar for
That's right.
2022-23 school year.
Right.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yeah. That's awesome. It's easier. Okay, we're moving on to, considering approval of participation in the Tasby Risk Management Fund and coverage programs.
So that is basically a pool, and Tasby has provided our unemployment insurance for many years. And this year, they had some slight changes in verbiage. And so they said if we want to continue to participate in their program, that we had to sign their agreement again. We haven't done this in many years. Matter of fact, I can't ever remember having to sign that agreement. I'm sure we did when we first joined the program. But they are very cost effective. Actually, Mr. Vaughn has been working with our unemployment, and we had a rough go of it in the COVID year because there were a lot of fraudulent cases. Mr. Vaughn had to spend a lot of time on the phone, but all in all, I think had good service from Tasby on that. So, I don't know if you had any comments on that, Mr. Vaughn.
Yeah, of course, the area where we rely on is what I'm about to do next, is they keep us straight on our policies.
Yeah.
Help some with unemployment.
And that's really a separate deal, policies and so forth. For the risk pool, that we've got to sign that, so we would recommend you do that.
I'll move we approve the TASB Risk Management Fund interlocal participation agreement.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we are moving on. Mr. Ron's gonna go over our local policy updates.
Yes, ma'am, and Mr. Vaughn has spent some time working on this. He loves policy updates. He's threatened to read the entire document.
All 427 pages. The first thing that you see is my version of, my shortened version of the explanatory notes, which is their shortened version of the policy. So I've tried to shorten that a little bit. We'll go over it. With the new policies, sometimes these new policies catch up to practice that we're already doing. Sometimes we have to catch up to the new policies, and within these 9 local updates, there's a little bit of both of that. So I'll try and go through these real quick. The first one, CPC local, office management, records management. This just has to do with revisions of this policy necessary due to recent revisions by Texas State Library and Archives Commission regarding electronic records management. Basically, the local records management officer is required to develop procedures for the management of electronic records is required by law. We use our Skyward program for that, and Mr. Spradlin and his technology team, they oversee that, and so they manage that for us. So that's one of those we've already got in place.
And so let me just comment on that real quickly. We started using Skyward in 2000. We have all employee records and student records electronically from 2000 on, and that is backed up. And actually, it's not going to be long till everything we're going to be doing is going to be in the cloud. But right now, we have all those. Everything else we've got is paper. Now, we also keep paper of the employee records and the student records, but this policy is specific to the electronic records. So.
Okay, this next one, DMA local professional development, required staff development. This is one we're going to catch up to tonight. Mr. Besson here in a minute is going to get us caught up to that. Senate Bill 1267 requires the board to annually review best practices for staff development and adopt a professional development policy based on SBAC recommendations. So it's recommended by Tasby that the board annually adopt the district staff development plan. Now we're more talking about the type of things that Mr. Besson really works on. You know, we've got 2 types of staff development work, and more the curriculum instruction that Mr. Hagler's been doing all summer. And then we've got kind of the other type that talk about suicide prevention, safety and security, those type of trainings that we have to go to. Mr. Bessent usually handles those. And so the requirement is that we review, that we go over with you guys those types of staff developments and what our plan is to meet that requirement. So Mr. Bessent's gonna hit that here in just a minute. It's also recommended that some text is deleted regarding allowing time off for attending staff development activities during non-duty time. Practices are more appropriately addressed through the employee handbook or administrative regulation, not really required to be board policy. So just deletion of that text. Next one, EHAA local, basic instructional program, required instruction. This has to do with something Mr. Hagler's already done with you guys regarding the shack. Senate Bill 9 created several requirements for instruction in the prevention of child abuse, family violence, dating violence, and sex trafficking. This policy updates and adds text to meet these requirements, including the board adoption of a resolution to convene the School Health Advisory Council to hold meetings and make recommendations to the board at a public meeting. I don't know if there's anything you want to say on that. Basically, I believe last meeting or a couple meetings ago, Mr. Hagler did that, so we're already.
Actually, the April, May meeting, and we put that together with the House bill on human sexuality, and we made a recommendation to y'all, and y'all approved through our Wilcox. And I told you about that companion piece that we have in the health books that we teach in our health classes. It has human sexuality and these topics of child abuse, family violence, and sex trafficking. So that's a catch-up.
All right, this next one, EHB local, special programs. This policy is added requiring the district to provide regular training opportunities for teachers of students with dyslexia in order to meet TA policy requirements for ongoing TA special education cyclical reviews. Okay, this is one that we feel like visiting with Ms. Vaughn, we need to add some additional opportunities to meet this policy. We've had those trainings, but it's more been, I would say, our direct dyslexia teachers. And so this is an expectation that we expand some offering for all teachers that might happen to have dyslexia students in the class. So we will be increasing some opportunities there based on this policy. EHBA, special education, identification, evaluation, eligibility. When a student transitions from early childhood intervention, ECI, to early childhood special education, ECSC services, the district shall develop and implement an individualized education program by the child's 3rd birthday. We already do this. So this is something we've already had in place for a little while now. So this policy is catching up to our practice. EHBB, special programs, gifted and talented students. This simply removes the requirement for the district to annually certify to TEA that the district's GT program is consistent with the Texas State Plan for Education of Gifted and Talented Students. So something that we don't have to do. The next one, regarding graduation, local requirement. Revised administrative code rules require board policy to address how a student can confirm completion and submission of a financial aid application to meet graduation requirements. All kids are supposed to fill out basically a FAFSA now, and there's a list of ways that they can meet that requirement. And so this policy establishes a list of ways that the students can meet that requirement. And so this actually is a response. EIF also has a legal piece that states kids have to do that for graduation now. The legal piece does give them an opt-out avenue to not do that. In legal, there's form and everything. So locally, we just have to give them a list of ways to meet that requirement. And so I didn't put the list in there, but there's about 5 different ways, trying to make it pretty easy for kids to meet that requirement. Next one, the FFBA, trauma-informed care. This first part is just a wording adjustment based on the previous DMA local By putting that in policy, that adjusts the words for the trauma-informed care on this. It also removes the requirement for a district to annually report to TEA the number of employees who participated in trauma-informed care training, and that has been repealed. The last thing, revision to this policy meets Senate Bill 9 requirements that the district officials are to notify the parents of the alleged victim when the district receives a report of dating violence. Questions? All right, thank you all very much.
Thank you. Make a motion, we approve the local policy update 119.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we are moving on to reviewing and considering approval of required staff development.
So you just approved DMA local, and Mr. Bessett is gonna fulfill DMA local right now. So that is to review and consider the approval of the required staff development plan, which specifically, Mr. Bessett is gonna share with you all those, items that are required. Most of it is safety and security issues.
Right, so if you look at the handout, you should have in your board packet, there's a list. So what the state, of course, has, over the years, has increased the number of required trainings for all staff, teachers, aides, cafeteria workers, whoever. And so we worked real hard. We started actually in the fall trying to put a matrix together for our principals so that we wanted to make sure that if it was a required training by the state, that we had verification and documentation that our employee, whoever they might be, had completed that training. So their direct supervisors are responsible for that. So that'd be the building principal for teachers, aides, and custodians. Christy does food service, all of her cafeteria workers, and then the high school nurse does nurses, and then Coach Martin's ultimately responsible for coaches, because there are also some UIL trainings that aren't on this list. So each specific field, especially like food service, coaches, etc., that training sometimes even changes, and so it's a moving animal on that, but they all have a list of those required trainings that make sure their employees have documentation. And so what we've done is try to create a type of certification. We have that through our staff portal where our employees can come in, get the required training, that prints a certificate when they complete it. They give that to their supervisor, and we have a record of it, documentation, whether it's safety training, seizure training, whatever it is. And some of that training, specific training, would be just job related. Do you have a student that requires some additional training, et cetera, or could be like in Shawnee's case, CPI, something like that. So special ed has some extra trainings. It's not training for everyone, but a specific training, and those supervisors deal with that on a need to have basis on that, but we document everything we have. And we found out that it took us a while to do that, especially when you have a lot of employees like the high school, to find that. If they didn't have documentation, we repeated the training. So if it's required, we have a certificate on that. And then if it's recommended to have an annual review, we look through all the process, and for the first time this year, our second day after we get our general staff back, we're gonna do our review training among our business type meeting after our general speakers on the first day. Second day, we're gonna do some review training. It's recommended by the state, recommended by our we think it's good, important, and we're gonna do a little of that on that day too, to kind of meet that need too. All of our new staff, we have a new teacher orientation, and we have a new staff orientation, and we take care of a lot of the in-person trainings at that time, mostly safety that are required by the state. But that's where we do stop the bleed, craze, SRP, et cetera. And we get a little more hands-on with that,
So that would be, so if you have any questions, of course, this is good.
That's a lot of training,
a lot
but we've tried to simplify it with our online. Jackie helped us and kind of have a little process where they can work at their own speed, and they're not real long for the most part, but there's suicide prevention, trauma-informed care, and there's some other shorter ones, but there's a little test at the end. They take the test, and then It takes them to a certificate, they print it, so we have a documentation, they give that to their supervisor. So that we know we're checking the boxes.
And so now you have, this part of this meeting is the review.
Yep.
So we have reviewed what we've done, and now you've heard Mr. Bessett say where we're going. So that is the plan that you are adopting. as we move
And there's
forward.
potential, next year we'll have additional trainings on here, I can assure you. I mean, they're probably thinking of them right now. And so we'll add those to the list, and this is a yearly approval process, I think.
So, yes, it is yearly, so we will see this every year. And I will tell you this, Mr. Bessett was talking about helping the principals keep track of these things, because now, you know, we've got 350, 60 teachers, and they needed a way of being able to know what their folks had, and then as you have new teachers come in, teachers leave, maybe change campuses, there's a lot of information that we try to keep track of. And, you know, if there's ever a question, you know, if God forbid something happened that we none of us want to see, then we have, hey, this teacher did receive training in this area, or that preventative measure, or whatever. And so it's good for us. It keeps us on our toes to make sure people have the training they need. And so it's a good idea. So.
Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Bessett.
Thank you, sir. So I move to approve the required staff development plan.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Very good.
Moving on to, I guess, just items of information.
Yes, ma'am.
Summer board meetings and workshops.
Okay, and this is not new. Y'all have seen this several times now. We've got one more budget workshop. So just remind you that when we come to that one, we will one more time look at our revenue side. We will, on July 25th, we'll have received our maximum compressed tax rate that we can have from the state. We'll take that into account to our situation, and hopefully that will give us direction on where we're able to go with the expenditure side of the budget. And so we'll have all that. When we finish that workshop, we basically will have a game plan as to where we go from there, which means that when we come to that August 29th meeting, we're going to be adopting the budget, the tax rate. We're going to be looking at amendments for the current year budget we're in. So there's a lot of things that we do at that last August 29th meeting. Also, part of the reason we need to leave that August 8th meeting with a clear game plan is because we've got to publish that in the paper. So everybody will be able to see that, and if they want to come to that August 29th meeting for comment, they have the opportunity to do that. They know what's going to happen. So that's kind of the process as we go forward. Good. Thank you.
Correct. Star results.
Mr. Hagler has been slaving over these, memorizing all this information. Maybe not. So go ahead, Mr. Hagler. Tell us about our very good star results, and thank all the folks in this room who helped make those happen.
Before I go over the 2022 STAR data, I want to refresh your memory of accountability system in Texas. Think back to 2019, that's the last year that schools were held accountable for their STAR scores. And I've reminded you numerous times since then and again tonight that not only were all of our campuses rated an A that year, also our district was rated A, so we're very proud of that. Fast forward to 2020, and there were no assessments. Of course, that's when the pandemic started and students were learning virtually. 2021, the crazy year, students took the test. We did get data on the individual scores of the students, but once again, schools were not held accountable. And then this year, you revert back to 2019. All the students are taking tests, and schools are being held accountable. This is a new chart. We've never showed you this chart before. In past years, for those of y'all been on the board for a while, we usually just show you the approaches grade level. That's the pass-fail. We thought this year we might just go ahead and show you all 3 levels. The main reason we want to show you that, and we couldn't have done this every year, is because our scores are so good and we're so proud of our students. I can't tell you how proud I am of our students and the success that they had, especially enduring what they've gone through over the last 2.5 years. So they were successful. Our scores are great because of a lot of hard work on their part. Obviously, the teachers that we have do a great job, and the administration we have, so it's a combined effort. We're very proud of the scores. Another thing about this chart, it can be a little bit overwhelming, so if you'll give me the opportunity to try to explain this. What I like about this is it's apples to apples. We're talking about kids at the same grade level taking the same test, and we compare it to the state and the district. We're not comparing to the test back in 2019. We're not comparing to the test last year. It's apples to apples what we did this last spring. So if you'll bear with me, I wanted to show you how to look at this chart. You can look over on the left side in the yellow. You can go down vertically and you can see all of the core subjects that we tested in from grade 3 to the high school test. And then if you look horizontally, you can see the approaches grade level, the meets grade level, and the master's grade level, and the domain 1 average, how we did in all of those. Just to refresh your memory about what these mean, approaches grade level is basically, like I said earlier, is a pass-fail. Also, the state defines approaches as a student that meets approaches. They were successful, they passed, but we feel that they need to have some intervention to be successful at the next grade level. TEA defines meets as a student that did really good on the test, but there's some target areas that they're still struggling in, so they might need limited intervention to be able to have success at the next year. And then masters, obviously these are students that did really good on the test. And the last column is domain 1 average. You add all 3 of these together, divide by 3, and that gives you the average of all 3. So let's go over one to give you an example. Look at grade 3 reading. On grade 3 reading, you see that at the approaches grade level, 88% of our students passed, because that's pass-fail. And then you look over at the next column, that's meets grade level. We're at 68%. And then if you go over to the master's grade level, we were at 43%. You add those 3 together, you divide by 3, and you get a 66. Well, that 66 probably doesn't mean anything to you unless you know what the state cut scale is. Anything above a 60 is an A. So we made an A in 3rd grade reading across the district because we made a 66. Back over to the approaches grade level. If you just stay in that column and go down, you see we had grade 3, we made an 88, all the way down to a 96 in U.S. history. If you look at every one of those grades, reading, math, science, and social studies, you'll see what percentage of our students passed. We also compared it to the region in the state. So if you go back up to grade 3, you see that 75% of the state passed grade 3 reading, whereas at Wylie, 88% passed. So we subtracted the 75 from 88, and that's where we get the 13. We're 13% higher than the peers at other campuses and districts across the state. The red number, we took the higher of the 2, the region and the state, and then added up to the district score. One thing that I'm really proud of is if you look, and this has happened every year, I think as far as I can remember, if you notice there's a red number by every grade, every subject, and that red number tells you that we're higher than our peers at the state and regional level. And that's our expectation. We want that to happen, and we've met our expectations once again. So you look at approaches, go down, you see our pass, fail. You go all the way over to domain 1, and you look at district, and you see that we're at 66% at grade 3, all the way down to 83% at the bottom at U.S. history. If you look down there, there's 20 different tests. 16 of them we made an A. 4 of them we made B's, and 3 of the 4 we were just 1 point away from being an A. So the final summary of all this, if you look at the bottom where it says overall average, you see that we have a 66%, which by the way is 19% higher than the state average, which means that in domain 1, we are going to receive another A as a district. Now this is just the STAR results, domain 1. I don't know if it'll be the next board meeting or September. We're going to get the TEA A through F accountability report. And if we get it before the August board meeting, I'll report it maybe September. There's 2 more domains. There's the growth domain and there's the target domain. And so we know that we got an A district-wide in Domain 1. I feel confident we're going to get it in the other two and have an overall A as well. The principals you see here, they have their scores as well for their campuses. They can look at this data and they can, well, let's, for example, reading. You see grade 6, 82%. You go over to the Domain 1 average, 58. That doesn't meet our expectations. We need to see, look at the standards and see what's happening at that grade level on that test. What is it that we didn't master and what do we need to go back and reteach? English 1's another example. And even though I'm making these examples, the scores are still really good compared to the state, but it's not meeting the expectations that we have. You look over at the Domain 1 average of 59%. We know we can improve on that. Look at things that really stick out. We've highlighted in yellow. Those are grades and tests that we took that we were over 20% higher than the state. So you see a bunch of those on this chart. The ones that are in the orangish brown color, those are the ones that we were, even though they were still good scores, they were less than 10% higher than what the state average is. So we can look at this and see what targets that we need to be and what we need to emphasize next year. So I know that was a lot of information. Oh, one more thing about approaches grade level, and these principals have worked on this for a complete year, and we're starting year 2. House Bill 4545, accelerated instruction. Any student that fails, that doesn't pass on the approaches grade level, they have to do 30 hours of accelerated instruction. The remediation takes place at the lower grade levels. It can be before and after school and tutorials also at the secondary level, but for the most part it's built into the school day schedule. At the lower grades they do intervention period, enrichment period. And at the high school, they're fortunate enough to have block scheduling so they can put those kids in a class, they can schedule their class. So we make sure we meet those 30 hours of the House Bill 4545. Any questions? I know that was a lot.
That's awesome. Yeah. I hate that the state uses this to like define y'all as teachers and all that. It drives me nuts, but this is incredible considering what last year was and what y'all been in the past 2 years. I'm like amazed.
Yeah, great job.
Round of applause.
Amazing.
We are blessed. I mean, they do a lot of work on their campuses, but teachers put in a tremendous amount of work on this. Well, that's one of the things we're hopeful that Holly and Richard can help Mr. Hagler give those teachers even more help. So appreciate all the work that y'all have done.
Yeah, sure.
All right. We're ready to move back into executive session.
We're gonna make one more round of executive session.
Thank y'all.
Shouldn't be real long. Thank y'all for coming tonight. You're welcome to stay, Mr. Baker, Ms. Barrett.